Hey, what's up, you guys? Andrew here, obviously, and I'm back with a new video, a new tier list video. This time I'm going to be tackling every single album from the Big Four. Now, a few things I want to get out of the way before we start. Uh, these are only the studio albums. I did not include EPs, I did not include live albums, compilations, covers, anything like that. I just wanted to do studio albums because there's already 47 here. This is a lot to take in, so I didn't want to go crazy, although this is somewhat crazy. So I just want to get that out of the way first, and then when we go to the ratings themselves, we have the typical SAB CD format. S means I think the album is great. A is like pretty good. B is solid. C is meh, boring, and D is bad. Usually there'd be an F tier here, but honestly, I don't hate any of these albums. I'd have to really, really hate an album for me to put it in F tier. And while I do think there are definitely some D tier albums in here, I don't hate any of them. And as you can see, they are in alphabetical order. At least I hope they are in correct alphabetical order. If they're not, no one's going to kill me over it. So, without further ado, let's just get started. Okay, so I know it's being cut off on the side, but you should be able to see the albums anyways. So, starting off, And Justice for All. I love this album. I've listened to it so many times throughout high school. I don't hate the production. I think it would have sounded cool with bass, but I do like this album. I love this album. There's so many great songs. Like I said, I've listened to this so many times. I have to put it in S tier. It's just a phenomenal album, and really the last great Metallica album in my opinion. Next up, Among the Living by Anthrax. Among the Living it's Anthrax's most popular album, definitely. I think it's a pretty good album. I I don't Yeah, I would say pretty good. There's a lot of hits on here. I mean, this is pretty much a greatest hits compilation for Anthrax. I mean, Caught in a Mosh, NFL, Indians, I'm the Law, the title track, One World. So many classic Anthrax songs. Um, but I'm not the biggest Anthrax fan, so A tier. I should also mention first, or not first, but I should also mention I just listened to all of these albums recently, so they're all fresh. That being said, if I don't talk about an album for a long time, it's probably because I just don't have a lot to say about it. So, next up, Christ Delusion from Slayer. This is the return album for Dave Lombardo. Christ Delusion, good album. I would say it's a good album. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people really like this album because it's Dave's comeback. But for me, I don't know. I just think it's a good album. I wouldn't say it's an amazing album, but I think it's pretty good. Next up, Countdown to Extinction. Right. So Countdown is Megadeth's most popular album in terms of critical sales. Or not critical sales, excuse me, commercial sales. I think it's okay. And also, quick side note, just like with the death metal tier list, I will be ranking these in the tiers themselves. So I'm going to say I don't care for Countdown to Extinction quite as much as Christ Delusion. The thing with Countdown is, I don't know, it's not really a sound that I particularly want to hear Megadeth doing. I much prefer them doing like a thrashy sound, and I don't really care for this sound much. I mean, there's some good tracks, of course. Foreclosure of a Dream's awesome. The title track, Sweating Bullets. I mean, I've heard these songs so many times, but it's a fun album, but it's nothing amazing. Pretty much take exactly what I said for Countdown and apply it to Cryptic Writings. I don't hate Cryptic Writings. I think it's okay. I don't really care. Like I said, I don't really care for this sound that Megadeth's doing around this time. It's not bad. It's just a very mainstream sounding album, and It's alright, I guess. Uh, oh boy, next up, Death Magnetic. Death Magnetic was Metallica's comeback album. I don't care for this album at all. So many people give Saint Anger shit for sounding awful, and I agree, it does sound awful. Death Magnetic might sound worse. I honestly believe this album is horribly produced. Everything is so boosted. It's a fucking mess trying to hear this album, and it just, that on top of Metallica's insistence on making these hour-long plus albums. Like, thrash should not be making hour-long albums. I'm sorry, but this just does not work. It's fucking grating. But some of the songs are okay. I think they're okay. It's just the production is horrible. And while I do think the songs are okay, I don't think they're good by any means. So I'm going to put it in C tier, but it's close to D tier. It's like a C minus. I just don't care for this album that much. And continuing on this trend, Diabolicus in Musica, Slayer's new metal album. It's alright. I'd say it's better than Death Magnetic, because fuck that album. It's okay. It just, I don't know. It's just typical 80s metal band trying to be new metal. I think it's probably one of the better attempts for an 80s band to try and do that sound, but that doesn't make it good. I just think this is a misfire, a complete misfire. Divine Intervention is a good album. I wouldn't say it's one of Slayer's best. I definitely think they were missing something without Lombardo. I would say right there is good for now, although this could change. And just like with the death metal tier list, these rankings could change, right after this video is done. So don't take anything too seriously. Next up, Dystopia by Megadeth, the most recent Megadeth album, and with this recent Ellefson controversy, potentially the last for a while. I was in high school when this came out. I was really into Megadeth when this came out. Nah, I don't know. It just doesn't really work for me. I think Dave's vocals are just completely shot. I hate the clean production. This is fucking... Who gives a shit? There's fine, because at least the production is listenable. Same with Endgame, to be honest with you. A lot of these modern Megadeth albums I just don't care for, period. I just think they're really, really mediocre. I'd say Endgame's probably better than Dystopia, and it's probably better than Diabolos Diabolica, or however the fuck you pronounce that album. It's okay. Fistful of Metal by Anthrax. That's an interesting one. It doesn't really sound like any other Anthrax album. It sounds like a thrash attempt at like the new wave of British heavy metal. So kind of like a speed metal, heavy metal kind of album. It's not really thrashy, but at the same time, you can tell these guys are really big Metallica fans, which if I remember correctly, I do think Anthrax and Metallica were good friends around this time. And I think Scott heard the No Life to Leather demo and was like blown away. Which really, makes sense once you hear this album. It definitely sounds like a Kill 'Em All. Not a rip-off, but an homage. I'd say it's B tier, probably right there. I don't think it's the best Anthrax material. I do know some people who do think it is the best material from this band. I don't agree at all, but it's alright. It's pretty good. Not pretty good, but... For All Kings, though, is mediocre. A lot of people love the two most recent Anthrax albums, and I completely get it, but I just don't. I really just don't care for them much at all. I think they're really boring. This one probably goes like here-ish, maybe, but it's give or take. I mean, it really doesn't. Not really apples and oranges, but it's really not that big of a difference. I don't care for the modern Anthrax material because it's really not the Anthrax I want to hear. I want to hear funny, comedic Anthrax. I want to hear short songs. And this is Anthrax doing the exact opposite with super clean production, which I think is a horrible thing for thrash. One of the worst things you can have for a thrash album is super clean production. Excuse me. The songs are long. Joey's vocals are fucking shot to shit. It's just such a serious album. Like, I just don't want to hear Anthrax doing this sound or singing about these things. It just doesn't really work for me, so I'm going to put it in C tier. Okay, well, I wish I did this video in one take, but I forgot my water, so that's good. Anyways, next up, God Hates Us All, released on 9/11. God Hates Us All, a lot of people don't like this album, and I understand, but to be honest with you, I really dig this album. For some reason, it just really works for me. I think it's so intense, it's so fucking hateful, you know, and that's what I love about Slayer. I've shit on this band so much, but after going through their discography recently, I've really taken appreciation for them, and I really think they're a great band. And God Hates Us All is an example of that, because I think God Hates Us All is better than pretty much any other thrash album released by the Big Four after like the early 90s. I think God Hates Us All is a really kick-ass album. So I'm going to put an A tier. Yeah, fuck that. I'm going to put it above not Spreading Disease, Among the Living, because I really like God Hates Us All. Speaking of modern thrash albums, oh boy, Metallica, Hardwired to Self-Destruct. Once again, similarly with Dystopia, I was in high school when this came out, massive Metallica fan. I bought the CD. I was really, really into this album when it first came out. Not much anymore. Boring as shit. I wouldn't say it's as bad as Death Magnetic because the production's somewhat listenable. I'd say it's pretty much on the same level as Dystopia, give or take. I just think that their heads are completely up their asses. Just super long songs, super clean production. I think the title track was probably the best song, probably because it was the shortest. And then Spit Out the Bones, cool, I guess, but the drums sound like shit on this album. And I know it's, you know, Lars, ha ha ha, bad drummer, but just the sound of his drums, like the tone is just so fucking bad. I don't know, I just don't care for that album. Now moving on to some albums that I do really care about. Hell Awaits is a fucking awesome album. Hell Awaits is so good. Hell Awaits is probably my favorite Slayer album. It's close, but I think this is it. You know, Carrie had said after the album was recorded that this was pretty much Slayer's attempt at making Merciful Fate music, which is probably why I like it so much. But Hell Awaits, the intensity of it, the songwriting, the lyrics, the performance by everyone, the atmosphere of the album, it sounds so... It's maybe their most hellish sounding album. It's kind of like the Return of Darkness and Evil for Bathory, where Rain and Blood is the Under the Sign of the Black Mark, where you have kind of the more mid-tempo, hellish sounding album, and then the more infernal, fiery, intense album, if that makes any sense. So, oh shit. Sorry about that. So yeah, I love Hell Awaits. I think it's a great album. Speaking of great albums, Kill 'Em All, of course, is S tier. I would say it's probably better than And Justice for All. It's close, though. I absolutely adore Kill 'Em All. Once again, one of those albums I've just heard so many times. I have it like just tattooed on my brain. The performances by everyone are great. James sounds great. Cliff is absolutely a monster on this album. Granted, yeah, they are using Dave's riffs. It's kind of shitty, but Dave wrote great riffs, so it's a great album. Sorry, but I mean, I think it's a great album. I really honestly like this album a lot. And then speaking of Dave's riffs, Killing Is My Business. Love it. One of my favorite Megadeth albums. I think it's absolutely awesome. It's pretty much just Kill 'Em All. You know, there's some similarities. Obviously, Four Horsemen, And oh shit, what's the name of the Megadeth song that's the Horseman? Fuck. Fuck. Hold on. Mechanics. I think it's Mechanics. If I'm wrong on that, please really, give me shit over that because I should have known that. This is a great album. I think it really, really works. I think the performances by everyone sound great. The production is super raw, but it sounds great. I just think this is a great, great album. My mouse died. That's good. Next up, Load. Right. Load. I'm sure I'm not the first person to say this, but load of fucking dog shit. Does not work for me at all. I don't, oh, but what about King Nothing? I think that song sucks. I think every song on this album just sucks. The sound, this blues rock sound is just dreadful. I just think this album is really, really bad. Just the complete opposite of what I want to hear from Metallica. Just does not work for me at all. And then speaking of albums from Metallica, Master of Puppets. Where do you think that one's going? Amazing album. Absolutely amazing album. Once again, one of those albums I've just heard front to back so many times in my life. It's an album that really, really hits home for me for a lot of different reasons. I think it works. I've talked to death about Master of Puppets in one of my not my collection update video, but one of my vinyl collection videos, so you can hear me come all over that album. But so yeah, Master of Puppets S tier. Black Album. Yeah, it's right around there. Probably like there. Oh shit. Black Album's not terrible in my eyes. I think there's some good songs. Overplayed to shit, but I guess that's not really the band's fault, really. I think it's okay. Some good songs, some meh songs, good performances by everyone. As an audio engineer myself, I thought that the videos on the recording process of the album were really, really interesting, and watching how they kind of work through the solos and work through kind of this changing of the sound. It's an album that I wish I liked more than I did, because I only kind of just like it. But it's I wish I liked it more, but it is what it is. Next up, Peace Sells. Obviously, Peace Sells is going up here. I'll probably keep it there. Peace Sells is awesome. My favorite Megadeth album. The title track, of course, is great. But Wake Up Dead, by far my favorite Megadeth song. That riff, that dun 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 dun. That shit is so awesome. It's just everything that I want to hear in Megadeth. The kind of dirty production, Dave's snarling vocals, the speed metal stuff, the drumming is all insane, the cover songs. It's just a fun album. It's a great album. No complaints for Peace Sells. Persistence of Time is an interesting album. This is the album where the band wanted to move in a different direction lyrically. And this is probably where I fall off with Anthrax. A lot of people say this is the best album. I do not agree. I would say it's like there. I don't want to hear Anthrax singing about this shit, because I personally don't think that what they're singing about is really all that interesting or new. It really doesn't work for me, and their musings on these themes are very surface level and not very thought out. So I don't really care for Persistence of Time. I think it's a good album. I just think it's pretty okay. I don't know. I just doesn't really do much for me. But I know it does a lot for some people. But, it is what it is. Rain and Blood. Rain and Blood is going to be obviously an S tier. I'm just trying to decide if it's better than Peace Sells. Fuck, I'm going to say it is. Rain and Blood's awesome. I used to not like this album, to try and be contrarian and cool. And while I do think that there's much better thrash albums in '86, I still think Darkness Descends and Pleasure to Kill are probably the best thrash albums of 1986. Rain and Blood is so fucking good, man. I mean, you don't need me to say that because it's obviously one of the most legendary thrash albums and metal albums ever. But just the way the album is structured from start to finish, it just works so well. The way they put the Angel of Death and then the Rain and Blood, the two longer songs on the ends, the bookends, and then filled the middle with just these fast, relentless songs. It's such a fun album. It's really, really good. Fuck. So yeah, I love Rain and Blood. I think it's a great album. So S tier, no problem with that. Reload. Fuck this album. It's take everything I said about Load, but just it's just terrible. It's so long. It's just unbearable to sit through. I just don't understand why they thought this was a good idea. I don't even see how this is commercially viable. I mean, like, some of it is like hard rock, but like, it's just so fucking boring. Like, is hard rock really this popular in 95, 96, or 96, 97 to do this? There's like bluesy shit and there's like country shit, and it just does not work for me. Repentless. Good album. I definitely think it's probably the second weakest Slayer album, but I don't really understand the hate that this album gets. I don't think it's bad. I think there's some good stuff. Obviously, Jeff's gone, so the soloing of the album is not the best, but you still got some of his riffs. You still got some of his songs. I don't know. I think this album probably gets, even though it's still my second least favorite Slayer album, I think it's probably the best. I think it's the best album from the big four that was like, remember how in like 2015, 2016, all four bands released an album and people were like ranking them and shit? I think Repentless is by far the best out of those four. Ride the Lightning. Yeah, it's my favorite. It's my favorite out of these. It's not my favorite thrash album ever, but out of all the albums here, it's my favorite. Ride the Lightning combines everything that's good about Kill 'Em All and everything that's good about Master of Puppets and just combines them together to make an absolutely brilliant thrash album. It's just amazing. I thought when I was going to re-listen to it, I thought, man, this is probably going to be real tired out because I've heard this album so many times, but it still is just as good as I thought it was, and it's so good. It's just an amazing album. Risk. I actually don't hate Risk. I don't hate Risk. Maybe there. That's alright. I don't hate Risk. I definitely think it's a real misfire from Megadeth and pretty much starts the era of Megadeth that I just don't really listen to at all. Risk is whatever. It's kind of their attempt at being radio friendly, but like not in the way that Countdown was. It's just a weird album. Crush 'Em is just fucking horrible, but everything else is just whatever. So I don't hate. I don't hate it. It's all right. What's this? I don't even remember what the ranking was. I think it was there. No, there. I don't hate Risk. So whatever. Rust in Peace. So I have never loved Rust in Peace. That being said, I still think it's a pretty good album. For some reason, it just doesn't resonate with me, and I don't know why. It has everything that I want from Megadeth. Maybe the production's too clean, or maybe it gets a little too serious, but all Megadeth albums are pretty serious. I don't know. I don't know why I don't love Rust in Peace, to be honest with you. I used to think it was because the lesser-known songs on the album were kind of bad, but after re-listening to it again, I really don't think that. I think most of the songs are pretty good. The title track's probably my favorite, simply because stuff like Holy Wars and Hangar 18 and Tornado of Souls is really overplayed, but I don't know. I don't hate Rust in Peace. I think it's pretty good, but I don't love it. Seasoned in the Abyss, I also don't love, but I do think is a pretty good album. I guess the reason why I don't love Seasons in the Abyss is that it just, how do I want to say this? It's not as intense as I would want it to be. It's not as full throttle Slayer. With that being said, it's still Slayer, and it's still a really awesome album, but I just don't think it's as memorable as some of the other albums. You know, the title track's good. You know, War Ensemble is just spectacular. There's a lot of really good songs in this album. Skeletons of Society, that's off Seasons, right? Skeletons, is that yeah, I think that's on there. Well, regardless, it's a really good album. Same with Show No Mercy. Probably put it right there. Really good album. Black Magic that riff is just spectacular. Really good album. I didn't include it here, but I actually think the Haunting the Chapel EP and Live Undead, like the era of Slayer from Show No Mercy till probably Hell Awaits, is probably my favorite era of Slayer, even though I think Rain and Blood is a better album than Show No Mercy. There's something about that early Slayer stuff, the first two albums, the EP and the live album, I think is just, there's something about that era of the band that just really, really works for me personally. So far, wait, yeah, so far, so good, so what, right, okay, pretty good album. I'd say it's, there's fine. I was going to put it above Rest in Peace, but then I was like, that's contrarian as fuck. I don't think it's a better album than Rest in Peace, but I do think it's a pretty good album. What kind of brings this album down is, I think some of the original songs are awesome, but the album just sounds rushed. It doesn't sound like the band was really kind of meshing well, which makes sense because Dave really did not take to the two new members. You know, he really fucking hated Jeff. But like, the cover songs are not. Anarchy in the UK is really bad. I'm not gonna lie. But like, Into the Lungs of Hell is so good, and that's like one of the best Megadeth songs in my opinion. So it's a really inconsistent album, but I do think it lands more than it misses. South of Heaven. A tier, I would say probably there, or maybe there. It's pretty much neck and neck with Seasons. South of Heaven, the title track is awesome. I just think that's one of the best Slayer songs ever. I just think the entire album just rules. There's something about it. It's kind of more mid-tempo like Seasons, but I don't know. It just sounds more evil in my opinion. It's just a really cool album, but I do think the songwriting is just slightly better on Seasons. I don't know. It's close. Like I said, this can go back and forth. I'm just gonna keep it. I'll keep it there, but that could change. Anthrax, Sound of White Noise. I don't know what else to say about Anthrax. They're sounding serious. They're sounding boring. I'd probably say it's like right there. It's just on the cusp of being a good album, but it's so fucking boring. I don't hate John Bush. I don't think Armored Saint, for me personally, as a huge diehard fan of United States power metal, I don't think Armored Saint is top shelf United States power metal. I think they're pretty good. I was never a huge John Bush fan, and I think his stuff with Anthrax just sounds so boring. And I mean, this sounds just like, there's a review of this album on Rate Your Music, and I believe it's they said it sounds like Alice in Chains mixed with Pantera, which sounds cool because I love Alice in Chains and I like Pantera, but it's just so fucking boring. It's just Anthrax doing serious shit to sound serious, but I don't want to hear Anthrax doing serious stuff, so it falls on deaf ears. What doesn't fall on deaf ears, Spreading the Disease. My favorite Anthrax album. I'll say it's like right there. Spreading the Disease works so well for me, and I think that's because it's really, really thrashy. Lone Lone Justice is my favorite Anthrax song. It's just a fun album. Madhouse, of course, is the big hit. It's so, Guitar Hero 2, that's how I found out about it. Of course, I think most people found out about it that way, but most people my age at least. It's a fun album. The riffs are great. The vocals are great. It's just everything I want to hear from Anthrax without sounding overplayed like Among the Living does. I think Spreading Disease just works really, really well. State of Euphoria is an interesting album. I'll say it's like here. It's an interesting album. It's kind of like Anthrax's So Far, So Good, So What, in that it sounds kind of rushed. And I don't really understand why, because I don't know if this is the transitional album to go from the sound of Among the Living to Persistence of Time, but it's still a fun album, so I don't really think it's that either. I mean, obviously the big song on here is Antisocial, and well, that's fun. I just think a lot of the songs sound like, leftovers from Among the Living. It's just a really okay album. Like I said, I don't hate it. I think it's good. But I don't know, it just doesn't really do much for me. I just don't think many of the songs do much for me. Saint Anger. Where do I want to put Saint Anger? Yeah. These three could honestly just shift around. Saint Anger, honestly, I'll probably put it there. Because at least Saint Anger tries something, it tries to be raw, and it tries to be aggressive, which is like what thrash is all about. It's not this boring country shit. It's at least trying something different. It fucking falls on its face. It's just such a joke of an album. It's so memed. I don't even like talking about it because it's just so like, it's like talking about like a lewd video my anus. It's like, fuck that album. Like, who gives a shit about talking about that? But it's a bad album, but at least they tried, at least they tried. Next up, Stomp 442. This shit sucks. This shit fucking sucks. I don't give a shit. Who cares? Sure, put it there. Anthrax trying to do groove metal. John Bush is boring, but the riffs are just laughable. It's too long. It's just everything that could go wrong in a thrash album. Boring riffs, boring vocals, trying to be mainstream. Super Collider, this is just a really bad string of albums. Super Collider fucking sucks too. Early there. I don't care for like most of Megadeth's discography. I don't care for any Megadeth album after Cryptic Writings, to be honest with you, and we got a lot of Megadeth albums to talk about after this, but for some reason this just falls so completely on its face. Even most people who like the modern Megadeth stuff don't care for this. It's just bad. I don't even know how to explain it. The riffs are just laughably bad. The production is super clean, which, I hate, but whatever. System has failed. Nah, it's alright. This is is that the Megadeth album that was supposed to be a solo album? I think so. Either that or World Needs a Hero. For that reason, it sounds kind of weird. Doesn't really sound like a Megadeth album. It sounds more like a Dave Mustaine solo album. Kind of like how Seventh Star from Sabbath was supposed to be a solo album for Iommi. But that album's actually good. It's actually really, really good. System has failed. It's fucking boring. Boring, clean, thrash, whatever. 13. Same shit. Who cares? Whatever. There. That's fine. Fuck this new Megadeth shit. It's so boring. At least with Metallica, I can like hate on like Reload and Load and Saint Anger, but this Megadeth stuff, I don't even have anything to say. United Abomination, same thing. I don't give a shit. Put it there. Okay, I don't. Fuck it. I mean, it's just so boring. I don't know. I'm sorry if you guys like it, I'm sure I'm sure it has a lot of fans. You know, it's got Dave's really showing off his guitar skills on these albums, because they're no longer going for mainstream recognition. I think is this the album with Gears of War, the Gears of War song? Maybe, but it's not going for mainstream popularity. So Dave's able to riff more and solo more, but it's just so fucking boring. You know, like I said, I'm sorry if you guys like it, and I'm just shitting on all of them, but it just does not work for me at all. Volume 8 sucks. Worst Anthrax album. Everything that's bad about Stomp 42, 442, whatever, it's just worse. It's just so bad. It's just bad. We've Come For You All. We Come For You All was literally supposed to be Anthrax's breakthrough point into the mainstream, and they've completely fucked it up. Because of 9/11 and all the Anthrax shit. You know, Anthrax, you gotta change your name. No, you know, some fucking firefighter in New York said, no, Scott, don't change the name. Just release a new album. Yeah, that was probably a good idea. Let's release a new boring fucking Anthrax album. It doesn't matter where I put this. Midnight, right there. Sure. Whatever. Who cares? Jesus Christ, can we get to a good album yet? World Needs a Hero. Boring. Garlic there. Who cares? World Painted Blood is a good album. I would say it's probably maybe there. Maybe there. I like World Painted Blood. I think it's a really aggressive album, which is good because I want to hear Slayer. I want to hear thrash metal that's aggressive. And after the 90s, Slayer was literally the only band doing aggressive thrash out of these four. So it sounds really, really good. Production's a little flat. I do think that's an issue, which is why it's my third least favorite Slayer album. But it's fucking Slayer. It rules, you know? It's just really, really good. Not really, really good. It's just good, but it's Slayer, so, you know, it's really fun. I'll say that. Worship Music. Put it right next to the other Anthrax album. Boring, serious Anthrax. I don't know what else to say. I just don't give a shit about Anthrax singing about serious stuff. I just think it's boring. Sing about comic books. Sing about Judge Dredd. I don't give a fuck about you singing about politics or war or whatever the hell they're singing about on this album. Finally, we get to the last album, Euthanasia. Right there. Euthanasia is alright. I don't really particularly care for it, but I can't say it's bad. That being said, I'm just gonna move this up past most of these albums because I'd rather listen to Repentless than any of those fucking albums. Euthanasia's not bad. To Lamont is not that good, if I were being honest with you. I don't get the hype. Just Megadeth being mainstream, being boring, but the songs aren't bad, so whatever. So, this is my final ranking. Well, for this video, at least. Actually, let me just go through. I'm gonna actually put Saint Anger last because Saint Anger is just, even though it tries something new, it's just fucking completely unlistenable. Reload, Source and Load, Super Colliders. Yeah, that's fine. That's all fine. C tier, that's all pretty much interchangeable, but whatever. B tier, I think B tier is probably set in stone. That's good. A tier, apart from these two, which I'm still fighting over, I think that's pretty set in stone. And then finally S tier. I didn't want to have the first four Metallica albums be the top four albums. I thought that was kind of shitty. But that's just how it worked out. I love that stuff. I absolutely adore it. So pretty much, after going through all these thrash metal albums, I've come to this conclusion. Metallica's first four albums are still amazing. I still think they're some of the greatest thrash metal ever made. Megadeth Those first two albums are just awesome. Some good stuff, mostly boring. Slayer, probably my favorite band out of the big four because they've only put out one mediocre album, and that's batting pretty good in this field. I think Slayer's fucking awesome, and I retract any criticism I ever slew at them. And Anthrax is Anthrax, so who gives a shit? Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. I absolutely love doing tier lists. I think they're really, really fun. I think they're really, really good. I just think they're good. So if you like this video, I hope to do more tier lists. So stay tuned for the next one.